Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Yarns with Andy. Today, I've got Sanjesh Lal from Keola Projects. Thank you for being here, Sanjesh.
It's all right. Good to be here.
Yeah, mate. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Keola is a company. We do residential and commercial construction. Been operational for about 16 years. So medium density housing, social housing, childcare centres, a bit of commercial work. That's pretty much what we do. And basically construction project management.
Busy?
So this year things have been sort of a little bit up and down, a bit patchy, but we're lucky enough to have a few projects on the go. Just sort of hanging on until the tide turns hopefully in the next 12, 24 months or perhaps longer.
Yeah. So, Sanjesh, let's talk about your views on public and private sector collaboration in addressing the housing affordability in New Zealand.
Well, I think that's a good question. Really, there's two things. Like private sector generally tends to do things more efficiently.
Yep.
Public sector generally tends to have the bigger budgets. So if those two sectors combined or worked closer together, one can use and bounce across each other to deliver effective projects. So in terms of if you were to give a project to a private developer or someone like that to deliver that project, I mean, hands down, we know that would generally be done much more efficiently because they've got budgets to basically very tight budgets, timeframes, etc. When it comes to public, it's somewhat a little bit loose. Not all of them, but generally. So
how so? How?
I guess in the public sector, it's really no one's money. It's the taxpayers' money. So
it is the taxpayers' money. It's your money and my money.
When people say it's government funded, nothing's actually government funded. It's taxpayer funded.
100%. Absolutely.
So I think in terms of liability and risk and all this, it's a little bit removed from the private sector way of doing things. In terms of collaboration, public sector have a lot more projects and time frames are extended where they basically have the intel to add value to projects and have a pipeline of work. The volume of work also is a big player. So the volume of work can allow you to strategize and get things in there that makes things more efficient.
Yeah.
Days gone by, I think, a lot of people have tried modular housing, prefab housing, all these things. When done privately, you need to a lot of setup costs and all this to actually try and make a dollar. Forgetting about the last sort of couple of years and when there's been a bit of a downturn, but even when times were good, prefab and modular, these weren't doing so well privately. But if they had the backing of public sector and guaranteed solid pipeline, then these companies would have done a lot better, I would think.
So that's where you think that collaboration would be effective between the private and the public sector is innovation, thinking about new ideas of smarter, faster, better ways to build housing?
Absolutely. If you have the volume and a guaranteed volume, then the private sector can get behind it and, basically not having to think about where the next job's going to come from. They can have a good pipeline of work, which will then free them up to think about innovation and delivery and all these kinds of things that are all useful things required for a good project,
Interesting. So that currently you're telling me that does not happen in New Zealand. What's the current status quo of the public and the private sector collaboration as it stands today?
It is happening, but probably not as much as it should.
Not enough.
Definitely not enough. I think in the private sector there are a lot of highly intelligent, useful, experienced people, which sometimes the public sector lacks. People that do go into public sector, I've had many instances where friends have gone into public sector after working in private, all with gusto, and we're going to make a difference. And within 2 or 3 years, it's sort of they've basically just settled in and
Yep.
lost interest and say they can't actually make any changes. And so that's
So why do you think that is, though? Why do you think those people have lost the drive working in the public sector? Because are the time frames flexible? Money is not a problem. It's been funded. So what's the key issue? What's going on there? Why do people lack the drive in the public sector as opposed to the private sector?
I think it's just a matter of just the way the bureaucracies are, that one man or two people actually can't make any changes, and the resistance of basically sometimes just old wood, not getting behind innovation and things, and it's just kind of just accepted that things will take long to do, whereas there are ways to do things efficiently. It's just in terms of the reasons, I don't know the reasons. I think
from your perspective,
from my perspective, I guess the KPIs are not that measurable for people that are put in positions for certain tasks of delivery. It might be KPIs at a high level, but how are these monitored, and there's how are they salaries, incentives, and things like that monitored? I mean, if I in the private sector, for example, I employ a project manager or a quantity surveyor, and so we're going to be building X number of houses. This is the budget. This is the time frame, and we all go for it, and it's constantly being monitored. Whereas, I mean, it's classic. There's a lot of classic cases where public sector projects, the same similar projects, private sector could probably a lot of times deliver, just over half the time frame. Especially
half the time frame, you said.
Quite possibly, because a lot of the sort of early involvement in terms of doing all the consents and design collaboration, all that just always seems to take so long. When it's a public sector projects, jobs get tendered out, it's budgets are blown, it gets re-tendered out, and the private sector, that those sorts of things are very limited.